Good morning. Really great to see everybody here. Beautiful sunny day here in London. I hope it's the same with you. I've just been looking at the people joining. It's great to have some familiar faces in the audience, but also great to meet some new people. So thank you for coming to this session. So this session is all about tech in our cities. There's lots of conversations about tech. Some people love it, some people hate it. Some people think it is a huge asset to our European cities. Some people think it's going to kill the heartbeat of our communities. It seems to be something that really splits opinion. But there's no doubt that over the last year, particularly since the pandemic struck, tech has been a really vital part of the way that cities do business. And for those of you who listened to the European Commissioner yesterday, it's really clear that digital transition is really vital next step for Europe's cities. So what we want to do today is to explore some of these questions in a very informal format. We're going to start the conversation with some great speakers who are at the center of this conversation, but I would really urge others to join this conversation. We want to know what our combined experiences tell us about whether tech and how tech can support our city futures. What tangible examples there are in our cities, both those who are on the screen now, but also the people who are in the audience. What tangible examples we have of tech acting as a force for good or a force for evil. And most importantly, what can we learn from those examples to do our business better, to serve our citizens and our businesses better across Europe's cities? But before we start, we're going to start with a brief poll. Hopefully most of you are now familiar with the poll features on Hopin. But if you're not, you can go to the right hand of your screen, you click on parallel session, and then you click on polls. And the first question we want to ask is just to see who's with us today. I think we've got 42 people currently in the session. I want to know who's in the room. So do you work as a local authority officer? Are you a local politician? Do you work for a civil society organisation, maybe an educational institution, maybe private sector, or maybe something else entirely? So please just take a couple of seconds to click on the one that refers to you. Okay, hopefully we're done. Let's have a look at the results of that poll. Caroline, I can't see the results. Don't know if others can.
Hearing.
Rebecca, you say you can. Could you tell us what the results are, please?
Hello for everyone. Greetings for the participants. So yes, I can see the result. There are 12 votes for local authority staff. There is only one vote for local politician, which is I think me. There is one vote for a civil society organization, 2 votes for educational institution, 5 votes for private sector, and 6 votes for other. This is what I can see.
Great, thank you so much, Rebecca, for your help. So come on, we really want everybody to vote in the next poll, if that's okay. So there's 49 people here, let's have 49 votes. So we want to understand if you consider your city to be a digital newbie, a tech or digital newbie. So a city or town.
Can you please try your headset? There was a problem. Or
you can hear me now. We want to understand if you consider your city to be at the beginning of its tech and digital journey. So here we refer to a tech or digital newbie. Or do you think you're a long way ahead? Like you think you're leading the way when it comes to digital transition? And here we refer to digital pioneers. So I know it's a really difficult choice and you might think you're right in the middle, but I'm going to force you and ask you to try and answer this question as honestly as you can. Do you think you're a newbie or a pioneer? Please vote. Okay, let's move to the results. I'm hoping I'll be able to see them, but if not, I shall be calling on Rebecca again. I can't see them, sorry. Rebecca, can you see them?
You need to answer. I think you need to answer. If you answer, you see the result.
I did answer. Okay, I did answer, but okay. So we've got quite a large proportion, 85%, who consider themselves to be a digital newbie, and only 14% who consider themselves to be a pioneer. And I don't find this result at all surprising. I think most of us consider ourselves to be imposters when it comes to tech and digital. I very rarely meet people who really consider themselves to be experts. And that's because it's changing all the time. It's really hard to feel like you're on top of things when something's always advancing. So the final question before we get started is, do you consider tech to be a force for good or a force for evil? A little bit more time. Please vote. We've got 53 people, 1 vote at the moment. Great, it's coming now. Okay, interesting. So we've got a self-selecting group here, people who've come to this session who presumably are quite interested in tech. And 92% of the people in the room consider tech to be a force for good. So that's a really interesting dynamic. And something, again, I think is to do with the people who've come sort of self-selected and come to this session. So we're going to get started now. If we were together in a room somewhere lovely in Europe, we would be sitting in a circle at this point. The people on the stage would be sitting on chairs in the inside of the circle, and the people who aren't on stage at the moment would be sitting around the outside. This is called a fishbowl conversation. And what we're going to do is the people on the stage are going to start the conversation. So they're just going to make some very introductory remarks in the answer to one question that I will pose in a minute. They're going to speak for 2 minutes each. And then we're going to invite everybody who wants to speak, and I really hope that you've come to this session wanting to participate, to click on the top right hand button and ask for permission to share your audio and video. This means you can also participate in the conversation. So you can come onto the stage, you too can answer the question, or you might have a question for one of the initial speakers. It's going to be free flowing. Hopefully it will work. It's high risk. It may not work. And that's agile approach, that's iteration, that's tech. You experiment, you test, sometimes you fail. And that's why I wanted to do it this way. So I'm going to start with the first question, and the initial panelists will start the conversation. So we'll start with Alexandra. If you could introduce yourself first, and then tell us about your experience of how tech has acted as a force for good in Pyrgos.
So hello everyone, hello from Greece and from the port city of Pyrgos, which is actually one of the largest ports in Europe and is located right between Athens and the Greek islands. I am the project coordinator of URBACT, a network of port cities that aim at starting up local economic development. Pyrgos is the lead partner of URBACT, as well as a partner in Tech Revolution, and we're very happy that both of these networks will continue with the second wave. So in Pyrgos, technology is definitely seen as a force of good. Tech is used to support startups, to inspire students to use advanced equipment, to protect citizens against the pandemic, and to make public space more comfortable and more user-friendly. A central node for tech in Pyrgos is the Blue Lab, the municipal center of entrepreneurship and innovation for blue growth. It has a dedicated makerspace with all kinds of technical equipment for startups to create prototypes and to develop their ideas, while it hosts school visits and e-learning programs for 3D printing and business development. Last year, during the first weeks of the pandemic, when there was a shortage of face masks in the hospitals, the Municipal Blue Lab acted quickly and printed protective masks to support doctors and medical workers who were on the front line of the COVID crisis. Something else that happens in Pyrgos is in public space, where there is free public Wi-Fi, as well as smart urban furniture powered by renewable energy. These are info kiosks and benches where you can charge your phone and be informed about the services of the city. All these actions are embedded in the digital strategy of Pyrgos, which aims at making the city a lab of innovation. Its main goals are to use tech to benefit the economy, make local governance more efficient, and benefit additional sectors such as heritage and culture through digitalization. That's all from me.
Okay, so Andre, it's over to you, and then we're going to go straight through to Petra and Rebecca without me intervening. So Andre, to you next, if you can introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Say your introductory remarks.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm head office for economic development in the city of Avedo in Portugal, a small, medium-sized city in the center of Portugal. And I'm also the project manager of the Avedo Tech City initiative. Well, yes, I think there are good examples of tech as a force for good. And by the way, I believe I'm a tech newbie, so we're just starting now. And I'd like to share with you some good examples of what we are doing in Avedo that are also related with different target groups. For instance, for teachers and our young students, we have created the tech labs. In all 31 elementary schools in Avedo, we have the tech labs with 3D printers, with electrical circuits, with Arduinos, with Ozobots, with a lot of tech material that is being used to support our youngsters to develop the STEAM competences, to get to know more about science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And we believe that this is very important in the future job market. And so the technology is here being used to develop some specific competences for our youngsters that will be important in the future job market. But we have also created a living lab right at city center with 16 kilometers of the latest fiber technology, with a 5G fully operational network that is providing startups and R&D centers the opportunity to test and develop new smart city and IoT products. They have here in Avedo right now the opportunity to test the minimum viable product and create new businesses opportunities for the global market. And we have also cultural events, Criatec and Prisma Festival. They both combine tech and art. And in those events, tech and art is being used to invite our citizens to meet in public spaces, to leave our city, to know better their neighbors, or also to know better our heritage buildings. So we here see three good examples on how tech can be used for different publics and can be used as a force for good. Soon, we will also launch the public tender for our citizen card. That is an output from the Card for All project that we were involved in URBACT. And it will integrate in a single card different public services to be provided to our citizens, including mobility, education, cultural, and other services. And these are only a few examples of the type of activities that we are now implementing in Avedo using technology. So yes, I definitely believe that tech can act as a force for good.
You're on mute, Petra.
Petra, you're muted.
Yes, I know. Hello, everybody from Pyrgos, Czech Republic. My name is Petra Srdingová, and I am director of Pyrgos Business Incubator and also ULG coordinator of URBACT, one of the URBACT project, which is called Tech Revolution, which was already mentioned here by Alexandra, because Pyrgos is also one of the members. I will start a little bit wider. Because I think I may consider the whole Czech Republic as a tech newbie because, for example, internet connection is one of the most expensive in our country. If I compare it with Europe, even though internet connection is on very high level, it's one of the most expensive one. I think this is something that we need to do something about. Also in the of cyber security, we need to we fall behind a little bit, so that's another topic we need to solve. And if I go to my home city, to Pardubice, well, there are of course some acts or some things which are already done. The city of Pardubice has tech in its strategy documents as one of the top topics to deal with. City of Pardubice also introduced industrial zone in our city. And if I can speak for my organization, Pardubice Business Incubator, we also support tech by inviting tech startups to join our community and to use our service in the city center. We have co-working space here, and we have many programs which support their development. By joining Tech Revolution Network, it really helped us to understood some aspects of tech. And as I said, we are technological newbies. It was a great experience for us, and we learned a lot, not only the good practice, but also the bad practice, which helped us to move further. So thank you for inviting me here, and also thank you for the opportunity to be part of this network.
So yes, hello again. My name is Rebecca Sabo. I work as a deputy mayor in a municipality, which is the 14th district of Budapest, which is the capital of Hungary. I am a green politician, by the way. And I think it's a very interesting topic, tech and the whole digital transition. I would say that the municipalities, at least in Hungary, at least in the smaller municipalities, are rather like dinosaurs regarding the digital and technical transition, because we have a large offices, a large bureaucracy, and it's really based on paperwork. And for example, just to imagine, we have council meetings every month, and the members of the council receive documents every month, and it was like 5 or 6 kilograms of paper each time. And it was a very long fight. Okay, that please put it into digital. I mean, it's enough if you have it online, and then after, of course, we can talk about it. And now we have this result. Now it's in digital form, so we can save really tons of paper every year. And for example, sometimes when I am changing emails with one of our companies, I write an email and I receive the answer. Then I can see that they wrote the answer, they printed it, they scanned it, and then they send it back to me in scanned format. So I wonder why. So, you know, I mean, this way of digital communication still in progress, I think. But on the other hand, we have a lot of positive results as well, what I hope that later on I can show you, because mainly URBACT and as well all the other international programs are teaching us a lot of, okay, how to do a lot of good things in a digital form. And of course, I guess like all of you, this COVID pandemic also taught us to adapt to the situation, that we had to be in home offices and we had to put a lot of things online. And it was also, I would say, of course, the pandemic is a very sad thing, but the experience and the lessons learned were, I think, quite interesting for us. Thank you.
So I think Jean-Philippe had a question. So Jean-Philippe, if you wanted to ask for audio video permission, Caroline will grant that to you, and you can join the stage and join the conversation. Ah, we have Alani. Hello, haven't seen you for a while. Okay. Alani, good morning. Maybe you can go after. We'll ask Jean-Philippe first. Jean-Philippe, you make your question.
Okay. Good morning. Maybe I'll start. Maybe my question might be a bit provocative, but I'll give you a bit of feedback before. I work for the Joint Research Center of the Commission, and recently I was working on technology in cities, and I was trying to do a literature survey of where technology is used. What's the biggest example? I wanted a full smart city. And I realized that actually, while there are many companies advertising key in hand services, so you can go to their website and they tell you, they do the traffic management, sewage management, smart government, they have it all. Yet there are almost no cities that seem to be making use of those solutions. And we seem to be going a lot of the way around, the startups. And my question, for example, if you want to use a words, Microsoft Word, for example, software to type, you're not going to use startups and ask 50 cities to use the 50 different startups. You're going to go to the major player and try to get the solution that you can scale up very quickly. And my question would be, why do we see this? Why is this not happening in cities? Is it an issue of funding? Is it how we are motivating people? Is it because we consider them as evil? So I would like try to get the perspective from the city point of view, why those, I would say, bigger players seem never to appear in the picture. Thanks.
So I would say that sometimes the big players do appear in the picture. IBM in particular has been pretty successful in smart city technologies and others. Many cities turn to startups because it's a win-win. They get to grow their local digital economy as well as solving local challenges, and it's in a local context. So you get some sort of local wealth development, which I think is also beneficial. So there are, as you say, off-the-shelf solutions, but they do require a huge amount of customization. And there are lots of examples of cities who have spent a huge amount of money with large companies and still not really been able to solve problems. And they often come with ongoing, high levels of ongoing costs. So this is really the crux of the good or evil discussion. Is big tech the right way to go? Or should we be looking at growing startups? Andre?
Yeah, just to add that I totally agree with what you were saying, and I'd like to add that also sometimes those big companies, they're actually providing small solutions that are based on startup solutions that they acquired. It's not so many times that they make it inside their house. Actually, they bought solutions from startups. And as Alison was saying, at least in the case of Avedo, we have launched different, what we call the Avedo Urban Challenges. So we address it to the startups and R&D centers and the local ecosystem, those challenges where we need tech to support us. And we have different good examples that we have implemented over the last 2-3 years. For instance, we developed a challenge that the goal was to develop an augmented reality system to allow our water supplier operator to view both water and sanitation underground infrastructures. And we had a startup from Castelo Branco, from a city also in the center of Portugal, that developed that solution, that tested that solution in our local environment, that had, of course, the mentoring from the technicians, from the water supplier operator. And today they have that solution, they have a new product that they are now selling in Portugal and in Europe. So we're also giving the opportunity for them to test the minimum valuable product, to have a new business opportunity. And as you know, when we're talking about smart cities and IoT solutions, the market is global. So we're giving them an opportunity in the global market for them to have new products. So I think, it's also, there's plus and minus in both options, but giving this opportunity for our local ecosystem to develop new products, I think it's something very positive.
Maybe I would just add that we can't consider startups as just someone who has just started. It can be some time on the market and can be 1-2 years. And I have the experience that someone who is really small can really expertise better on some things, can bring some individual solutions and exactly what's needed because they're very flexible.
Hi, I'm Ian. I'm based in York. I do a lot of work with URBACT, but I've worked for cities previously in sort of tech and innovation and transformation roles. And just picking up on that, I've certainly seen the interesting thing around big organizations, and I think, as Alison says, some of the big players have been very successful in partnering with cities. I think one of the things I've seen over the last few years is the way cities are developing technology and developing services has changed quite rapidly. The sort of the introduction of more user-based design techniques and so on. And some of the bigger players I've certainly seen, certainly in the UK context and abroad, struggle to keep up with those more agile ways of working and those more partnering and experimentation. They often want to bring in their product and say, there's our product, take it or leave it. And if it fits with what you want, that's great. Why go elsewhere if you can just, as you say, take the keys, plug it in, and off you go. But the reality is that whilst I think cities have a lot of the same challenges, the local context and the local ability of both citizens and municipal staff to interact in that way with different ways of working, different technology is different. And I think that's where sometimes startups do offer a better solution. And as Petra said, it's not necessarily complete early stage startups. It could be, growing or developing companies as well. It's finding the partners that can work with work with you in something that fits with how you want to work and how you're capable of working, because it requires a change from the municipal side, I think, to also be able to work in that way with a startup. It can be quite difficult sometimes to work in that agile way and respond to a way that the sometimes greater risk or rapid way of working that startups might have. And it's trying to work out that balance of, I think, where you can be. But I was one of the ones who provocatively put tech, voted as tech being a force for evil sometimes, because I think it can be very hard to get that balance. And if you pick the wrong one, if you pick the big player and actually that can't give what you want, or you pick the startup and actually you can't respond to that, it can really distract you from your focus of what the technology is trying to achieve, I think. So I think there are a lot of risks with technology in cities. And I think one of the things is how we understand which provider is best and how we work effectively with them. Because there's a lot of players in that market, I think, looking for your business. I think there's a challenge sometimes of finding the right motivations.
I agree. I rather sneakily cheated there and asked Elisa maybe if she could share her example, because I know that Elisa in Dubrovnik has some quite interesting experience of a challenge-based approach using hackathons. So Elisa, could you say a little bit about that? I think you're on mute. No.
It doesn't work. I would advise you to leave and then to join back to test. Thank you.
Maybe I'll start by saying a little bit. So, oh, she's just going to come back. Try again. No? Okay, we'll move on to Yvonne, and I'll come back to you, Elisa,
Yes.
so we can get your audio working.
Just before Yvonne is speaking, I would advise Elisa to refresh your whole page, please, and then we could retry. Thank you.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I jumped into the conversation a bit late, so I know that, and I see that Rebecca Savo from Zuglo is within the group, and she was a partner in Tropa Verde, as you know. So maybe she did explain it before, and definitely she did explain it yesterday in her intervention further to the opening of the event. But Tropa Verde good practice, Tropa Verde Transfer Network was created first by a startup, a local startup from a technological one from Santiago in Galicia, in northern Spain. They identified first the need to use game-based technology to promote major participation of citizens towards recycling, and it is where they've further developed the online platform that helped citizens to gain stars, points, and so on while recycling. I'm not going to explain the full good practice. It's on URBACT website, so I just wanted to mention it as an example, and maybe answering the question before. Again, thanks to the fact that it was a small technological startup, as already answered by, I think it was Andre before, it helped to, from the city council, it helped to develop such startups, such local companies. So it was part of a proudness for the city council as well, and generating jobs and knowledge within the city that stays in the cities. And also as a small company, it offered a lot of flexibility. To adapt, to collaborate, to we went also in administrative details such as tendering processes, and with big companies, it's black or white. It's impossible to have such kind of flexibility, and with these small companies, even if it's not always, I would say, legal, they might keep on collaborating even without contract, but for the good sake of the project and blah blah blah. So it helped a lot. And to add other examples, I was going to mention and to put in the chat. You might find a lot of good practices, examples of solutions developed by different kind of companies, big ones and smaller ones, within the Solar Impulse Foundation. Solar Impulse have been labeled 1,000 solutions, sustainable solutions for different kind of sectors, including cities, also industries and so on. And there I'll invite you to look a bit in its database. You might find some interesting sustainable solutions developed by different companies linked to environmental management of cities, energy savings, and so on. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to
very short remark to Ivan, because he mentioned Tropa Verde projects where Zuglo, my municipality, also participated at. So just to support everything what he said, I think it was very good for us that that the URBACT network brought us to this startup. So it was a quite of ready connection, you know, we just had to use very well what they provided. I mean, this whole online platform and everything. But when our municipality just by itself wants to make a connection, then it's much more difficult, because at least in Hungary, I think we are in a lack of information and we don't really have a good network with the startups. So I think it's a totally different world, and it has to be improved, I think, at least in Hungary and probably in other Eastern European cities as well, former, you know, Central Eastern European cities. Then we have to build connection with these startups. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. We've got some really interesting commentary in the chat. So Samina, who's the program manager of the Aston network, said we're moving from an approach where tech determines the problem, i.e. big companies, to a vision determining the kind of tech we need. So that's why it's important to work with startups, which allows cities to be more lean and closer to their needs. And Jean-Philippe is asking, how can we scale these solutions? Will we be able to scale them quickly enough? And Alani is saying from Nigeria, the tech is seen as a force for good, and saying a little bit more about the Aston network. So they're using the Aston network to understand the challenges and to develop people-oriented solutions using tech as well. So some really interesting commentary there. And thank you for your intervention so far. Elisa, shall we try one more time?
Yep, for the last time. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
See, tech is working sometimes. What I wanted to say is an example from Dubrovnik. It was quite, I think, Alison, you still have a very positive image, but the big ones got here as well. So a couple of years ago, I think almost 5, 6, 7 years ago, we would organize hackathons. City would organize hackathons and give city challenges to participants on the hackathon. So they would say all the challenges that citizens have in the city. Okay, high congestion when the tourists are here. We lose a lot of water within the infrastructure, the city parks and things like that. So there were a couple of problems that they put out there. And within the hackathon, the problems were solved, and the startups would come up with solutions. And then the best solutions would get funded from the city. So the city would actually try out some of the startups' ideas. And we had really good examples of things being implemented in the city. Of course, there were challenges with this as well, because at that point, you would need to give a bit of a support also to the long-term working and so on. But we did have a big pressure in the city of Dubrovnik from the big companies, from Telecom, Deutsche Telekom and so on. And they would just, the pressure was on procurement. They would just bring down almost every procurement that they would not win and so on. So, and after some time, they would have like a team working for the procurements. And this is something that the startups cannot follow up with. And right now, for a couple of years now, maybe recently, almost everything goes up to big Deutsche Telekom. So they're just so strong at one point that we are losing this startups. And after sometimes you see that the startups just are losing the energy. They cannot fight and compete with the big ones. And when you have the big players here, they need to redo and redo and redo everything, because they just do not really respond to the local needs. And it's just, yeah, so I think it's really challenging having a big ones. They come up with a big team and they seem at first that they have the solution to it all, but once they start working, you see that they don't really understand the the challenges, the needs of the really local citizens. And I'm talking here about a small city, 42,000 people in the city. So, okay, that's it from me. Yeah, but I would say it's like, good and evil in a combination. I think it's really worth on focusing your energy for the startups and growing up your own local community, tech local community, and they really do understand the needs. But I think that they are in a big disadvantage if comparing to the big ones, big players.
I agree, and I think so. As well as being lead expert of Tech Revolution, I also work at the heart of London's ecosystem, leading a project that connects underserved communities with opportunities in tech. And I think what I've witnessed there is, unlike maybe in other parts of enterprise and entrepreneurship, the main ambition for tech startups is to exit, is to be bought by a big company. So we shouldn't necessarily always assume that big is evil, because the big companies also acquire the small companies. They acquire and grow the small startups, thereby bringing wealth back into cities. Now, sometimes that's a positive experience for the startup that's acquired. Sometimes it's not at all. But these are also areas where cities can intervene, and cities can try and think about how they can make that kind of acquisition process maybe a bit more of a positive experience, and adding more value locally. Andre, I'll come to you, and then I shall come and ask the panelists for their final remarks.
I just would like to add two things. One, for the big companies also to acquire those startups, it's important that we are able to retain and support the talent that we have in the cities. Because in most cases, even when they buy those startups, they create their offices in the cities where they are initially from. So basically that big company, in some cases, will just create an office in, for instance, the city of Avedo, because they acquired the startup from the city of Avedo. And also based on what was being said before, that's why we launched the urban challenges. Basically, it's a way to go around public tender. We're talking about prizes of 20,000 euros. So also the challenges that we present, of course, are taking into consideration the amount of money that we are able to invest. And when we select the startup, because in the normative of the challenges, big companies are not eligible, are only R&D centers, universities, or startups. So we define who can apply for those challenges. And in this way, we are able to actually support those that we want to support. And we provide them 10,000 euros when they win the competition. Then they have 6 months to develop the final outcome, the product or the service that we have presented in that challenge. And in the end, they have a pitch competition, they present the final results, and we provide the extra 10,000K. So just to add what was being said, this is a way to actually support the startup ecosystem, and not giving the opportunity for the big players to come, because even for 20 or 30,000 euros, most of the time they are eager to compete and to also win those smaller competitions.
Thanks, Andre. We've now got quite a lot of questions coming in, but I'm also very conscious of the time, and I have been asked to finish on time. Mishka from Rotterdam, I think we'll have to find another time to answer that conversation, but I would urge you to talk to Pyrgos, which is also a city on the port, and they may have some experiences which may be valuable to you as well. So for the panelists, the initial speakers, what I'm going to ask you to do is just in 1 minute each, in the same order that we started, I'd like you to just say the one thing maybe that you'll take from this conversation, something you might have learned, something that you've reflected upon, something you're proud of, just a reflection on the conversation. So we'll start again with Alexandra, and we'll go in the same order that we went in the beginning.
Okay, so what I take from this conversation is that actually tech can be both for good and evil. It's like the two sides of the same coin. And what I thought after the whole discussion is that actually tech is a tool, and like all tools, the result of using it depends on your skills, if you know how to use it and how proficient you are at using it. And the reason you use it for. So you can make a masterpiece or you can destroy something completely and forever. So in terms of urban development for cities, I think maybe it depends on your vision. like Simina, I think, mentioned from Aston Network, and on your strategy, like how you plan to reach this vision and how do you plan to use technology, and if the municipal, the workers in the municipality, the officials, and the citizens can really embrace this and use this tool to make the most out of it.
Thank you.
Okay, so, well, first of all, very interesting conversation. Thank you very much for the audience. Excellent questions. What is it that I take? Well, the usual view that we have is that technology might be making people to be more distant. But I think that the recent past and also the present clearly shows that actually technology can also bring people together in this very difficult and challenging period that we're facing. So as we have seen today, definitely tech can act as a force for good, in my opinion. It can challenge our children to meet cultural heritage or to develop new skills, as I mentioned before. It can challenge startups to develop solutions for our local citizen challenges, this connection between our community and their challenges and the startup ecosystem. It can promote an inclusive access to culture. It can create better services for our citizens. And more importantly, I think it can also play a very decisive role in this climate change that we all need to promote. Thank you.
So what I'm taking up this conversation, I must completely agree, and I like the discussion about startups versus big companies. It's very interesting. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit further. But what's the positive for me tech is that it can really streamline the processes, replace outdated methods, can be time saving. But what I think, we are not exactly ready for the tech in the whole possibilities that it can bring us. We need to educate ourselves. We need to solve technical issues. As I said at the beginning, the infrastructure is not exactly ready for everything. So I think there are great challenges ahead of us, but it's a good step forward and it's a good way we should go. We should lead, and we should keep talking about this and keep improving the processes, as I mentioned. So for me, it's good, but we need to solve a lot of things.
Well, I mean, this discussion was really interesting, and my conclusion is that I need to learn a lot because this question is even more difficult than I thought at the start of the meeting. So there are a lot of layers, and yeah, I think basically in my municipality we could really do it much better, and I really received some very interesting ideas and hints, okay, to where to go in that direction. And I think mainly for us it's very important to provide a good service for the people who live in our district. They are our clients, so-called, we can say, because we are giving them service, and it would be very good to make their life more easier with a lot of good technical solutions. And in the comments I saw the question of the procurement processes, and it's a very important thing because, for example, in Hungary we have very strict rules for public procurement, and it's not really easy to give a positive chances or any so, based on values or based on if it's a startup or a big company, I'm not sure that it's so easy to kind of discriminate among them. So it's, again, question of rules, but it was a really interesting discussion, and I try to remember many things, what I heard. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you hugely to the people who started the conversation, and also to the people who joined the conversation, because that was an important part of what we wanted to do today. For me, I think that the conversation today has demonstrated the depth and breadth of potential uses for tech in our cities. So we've talked about efficiencies, administration and communication. We've also talked about things like recycling and waste and water management. We've talked about public health, even printing, 3D printing protective equipment during the COVID crisis. Also the importance to people, culture, heritage, tourism. education, economic development, inclusion. I mean, is there anything that tech doesn't actually have some kind of impact on now? Shouldn't we start to see it as a horizontal rather than a vertical? But clearly there are huge challenges in our cities. You know, I think, Rebecca, you said about the layers, and I totally agree. It's like an onion. Every time you think you've kind of got one bit, there's something else to understand. And no one's ever going to be able to come up with all the solutions all of the time. But it's clear that we do need to do some work together on how we support our local companies, local startups, to be able to upscale their solutions and to be part of this huge global market, which also contributes to solving some of these huge urban challenges. So I'm going to finish before we go on to the poll. I believe, and I think it was Alexandra who said it, I totally agree, it's a skill. It's something we're all learning all of the time. It's ever evolving, ever new. And I think we all need to help each other and support each other to keep learning and keep developing that skill. And that's where programs like URBACT play a really important part, because we can learn from each other and exchange experiences, both good and bad, and hopefully go to a place where tech really is seen as a force for good in all of our cities. So before we close, we've got 3 more questions to ask you. So Caroline, I think the first one, probably we know the answer to the question, because it's going to be very similar to what it was at the beginning. But the first question, we were going to ask the same question again that we asked at the beginning. So if you go to the polls, at the end of this conversation, has your opinion changed? Do you consider tech to be a force for good or a force for evil? No evil. Anyone want to vote evil? Might have won some hearts and minds, or that either that or people have left. And finally, URBACT is not finally. I've got one more after this. URBACT is considering doing some capacity building across Europe's cities to help you understand what needs to be done and how you can learn from each other in terms of digital transition. So this is part of the Tech Place initiative, and there'll be a special session on Tech Place to relaunch Tech Place tomorrow morning. But we're keen to hear from this audience. Do you think your city would be interested in participating in some URBACT training to support you with digital transition across your services? So it's a straight yes or no answer. That's great. Only 13 votes, but we'll go for 100%. I think people are tired and wanting to get their coffee. Fine. And then the last question I'll leave with Caroline. Caroline wants to ask a question with regard to how you found this session. So from 1 to 5, I'm guessing 5 being good and 1 being bad. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Caroline. So let's assume that 5 is fabulous and 1 is dreadful. How would you rate this session? Please vote. Okay. It'd be great to have a few more votes on that one. Be honest, we all want to learn. It's been an experiment. We're testing all the time. Okay, I'm going to let you go. Enjoy your coffee, enjoy the rest of the festival. Please join we've got a few breakout sessions now. So I know Tech Revolution's in a breakout session now. Please join the Tech Play session tomorrow morning. And yeah, I hope that we'll have an opportunity to continue this conversation in person when restrictions allow. So thanks ever so much, panelists. Thank you so much to the audience. And thank you, URBACT, for inviting me to moderate. Bye, everybody.
Bye.